I'm Officer Grubke with the Benicia Police Department, and I will be your guide and protector tonight on this tour up First Street. Historic figures in the history of Benicia, and we are going to meet and be greeted by the spirit of those historic figures. The first one we're going to stop at and see will be Jack London, and after that we will be greeted by the spirit of Gertie Gallardo. And Gertie Gallardo was the madam of the Jurgensen Saloon, which was right across the street. And then we get up to F Street, where we will meet the spirit of Milo Pasalakla. Milo, who lived to be over 101 years old, was the founder of the Benicia Vallejo stage line. A really interesting character who started the bus line with no money, no bus, and no driver's license. Didn't know how to drive. Never driven a car in all his life. Anyway, and then we'll end up in front of what was called the Bank of Benicia, which is Sandoval's restaurant today, and meet the spirit of Mary Farmer, who will tell us the story of a wild shootout and a murder in front of her house. Here at the historic depot, which was in the older buildings in Benicia, a lot of people say, well, where's the train? How did this work? There's water there and so forth. But the train used to come into Benicia before there were any bridges and come right down here. This depot was erected here in 1901. It originally was built for a station across the bay, but the Central Pacific Railroad changed their route, and the depot was out in the middle of nowhere, so they picked it up, barged it over here, and put it right here. So it's been here since 1901. The trains used to come across here, going up on a train ferry and go across the bay to Port Costa. It was an extremely busy railroad and a busy route. And all the trains that came to the West Coast that ended up in San Francisco or Oakland came through Benicia right here. So it was a very busy area. So this was the industrial part of Benicia in that railroad era, and I'm talking about the period of time from 1870 to 1930. Tanneries here, the big tannery where we'll meet Gertie Gallardo, the hooker with the heart, and canneries as well. Fish canneries initially, and then later on they canned fruit here in Benicia. And there was creamery, there was a pest control company that was here. So all the industry in Benicia was down at the bottom of First Street. Today we're accustomed to being out in the industrial park. That was all Army property, that was all the arsenal and so forth. So any industry or any big business in Benicia was down here. Okay. So it was a very busy area, very active. Trains coming and going, boats coming in and out, river boats up and down, and an awful lot of activity, a lot of people coming to work here and to play as well. Okay, so let's go up the street and we'll go to our first station and we'll meet the spirit of Jack London.
What's this?
Hello.
Oh, hello. Good evening, fellow Venetians. I'm Jack London. I was laying up on Sonoma Mountain. That's where I'm buried. And I said, I want to come back and see how the old town's doing, my hometown. And it's been a long time. It looks a lot different. But there's a lot of stories that are going around about Jack London. Like, for example, I got here in 1892 when I was 16. The way I got here was I borrowed $300 and I bought a sloop called the Tizzy Lizzy. And I was the oyster pirate on the San Francisco Bay. That gets a little dangerous. People are always after you. And then I found out they needed someone in the law enforcement. And so I became a lawman. Can you imagine that? Me a pirate and now I'm a lawman. Of course, I didn't get any salary, but they said I could keep 50% of all the fines that I collected. And boy, did I find them. And I was really a tough guy. All I had was a metal fork when I would get on their boat to arrest them. Of course, there was a time over on Martinez Pier that I tried to arrest two of those fishermen over there. And all the other fishermen started chasing me down the pier. And they almost caught me, but I got away. Didn't get the fine, though. Missed out on that. Now, the stories about my drink, they're all not true. Well, all right, so they're all true. There was one night I was really having a good time, and I was coming back down to the pier, and I ran into this fish net that somebody had put on the pier there, and I got all tangled up in the net, and I couldn't get out, and I finally just fell and went to sleep. The next morning, I'm tangled in the net, snoring away, and all the passerbys had a lot of amusement on my behalf. Now, the other story that is definitely true is about John Barleycorn. Now, John Barleycorn is liquor. I was coming down after a really good night to come down and get on my sloop. And I jumped on my sloop and I went right on over, right in the water. And here I am bobbing away in the water. Current starting to take me out. And at first I said, well, this feels pretty good, just bobbing away. And then I hear this John Barleycorn say, just let go. You can be a hero. You'll float out and you'll be a hero. It'll be a hero's death. That sounded pretty good. So I'm starting out there, I'm singing away, I'm bobbing away. And then John Barleycorn says, shh, they can hear you on the Solano Wharf. They go all night on the ferry there, and they might hear you and come out and rescue you. Oh, real quiet. And eventually I got all the way over by the Mare Island Strait where the Napa River comes in, and it's all turmoil, the water and everything. And I was getting water over my head, and I was getting in my mouth, and I was choking. And then I was getting really cold, it was getting cold out there, and I was getting sober. Going along here, so wait a minute, that would be a good reason to live. Now there's another good reason to live. I wanted to live. So I tried to swim to shore, but I was too tired. I just, this is it. I figured I was goner. I was just going to go ahead and have that hero's death. And along came this Greek fishing boat. And a Greek fisherman just picked me right out of the water. Saved me to live another day. And like they say, the rest is history. The next year, I wrote my first novel. And I wrote a total of 55 novels in my short life. But the best novel was based right here in Benicia. My favorite hometown of Benicia was John Barleycorn.
This particular location and this particular corner, on this corner, was the Benicia. It was called initially the Benicia Tannery, also the Coleman and Saul's Tannery, which was here for a period what actually stood from 1870 to 1947 or 8 when the fire destroyed it all. But it was a 5-story brick building. If you could visualize from here for the entire next block of a 5-story building with a walkway across the first street that went over to another building on that side of the street, which was 3 stories tall, brick building as well. And hence the tannery that you see today, the tannery building, is really a facade and somewhat of a remnant, but it's not the real original building. It's a facade to represent what used to be there. But from here all the way up for the next block, full city block, was a huge 5-story building and a enterprise that employed an awful lot of Benicia citizens. A lot of people working in the tanneries in the city of Benicia. There was also 2 other ones on the west end of town. So Benicia was well known as a tannery town. I mean, we went through a period of time when we were a railroad town, then we were an industrial town, an army town. So we have a lot of different histories to point to in our past. So let's walk up and we'll meet and see if we can find. Well, we're just walking by.
Oh, you
Come on
must
in,
be part
please.
of that history tour.
That's us.
All right. Well, listen, I'll make you a little deal. You can only stay just a tiny little while because I'm working. And this is actually my corner. But I just took in a little extra work tonight. They asked me to tell you a little bit about history. Let me see if, my name, by the way, is Cyrena. And I'm just going to, Cyrena's going to find her notes here, if you don't mind. Ooh, Captain. How are you? Oh, all right, we'll talk about that later. Now, let's see here. I'll just tell you, you know that Benicia has always been an industrial metropolis. And way back in 1879, there was the construction of the Benicia Tannery building. And it became the center of the tannery industry on the West Coast. Actually, the tannery building stood on this very spot. It was about 5-story brick building, and it dominated all this part of First Street. Actually, it was here for many, oh no. Well, hi there. Well, come on in. This is a command performance.
I recognize this character in the beer.
Oh, no, that's a captain. Anyway, there the Depression took its toll and the building was abandoned for many, many years. And then it remained empty, and then a terrible, devastating fire came and destroyed it in 1949. It was the largest fire in Benicia's history. And people from all around came to help fight the fire. And actually, one of the most interesting things was that they dispatched a fire truck from Martinez, and it crossed the strait on the ferry to come and help control the inferno. Now, I don't know why they put this in here, but I think it's sort of cute. It says, at one time the tannery was one of the largest employers in town, and all the men who worked there were good customers and perfect gentlemen. I just love that part.
In the early 20th century, Benicia supplied 1/3 of California's leather, much of it tanned on this site by Coleman Sauls and Company. And beginning in 1881, early tannery structures occupied the western half of this block. And by 1891, tannery structures covered the entire block. That's both sides on the entire block, from B to C Streets. This is C Street right over here. C Street never did go through. 3-story brick building was sited on First Street. Sprawling sheds holding mountains of tan bark from Humboldt County lined East 2nd Street and on this side, and an imposing 5-story brick rolling building was right here, dominated the area near C and First Streets. And as I mentioned to you earlier, there was an overhead covered walkway which linked the 2 buildings, so you didn't have to cross the street, you could walk back and forth. And that was the offices over there as well. At its production height, the tannery employed over 300 local workers, all men, I will point out, primarily Portuguese and Greek. It ceased Benicia operations in 1928, and the buildings were vacated. A series of fires erupted following the facility's closure, causing the destruction of all buildings by 1945. So it was really a very, very important part of Benicia's history. And there was a lot of activity here as well.
Who was it? Oh, well, listen, I hate to have to hurry you on. I'm waiting for a date.
Okay, all right.
Many dates.
Thank you so
Listen, if you
very,
see
very
Milo,
much. We're going to go see Milo.
Tell him I'll be talking to him.
Okay.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you very much. Is that you, Milo?
I like your outfit.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Come on, get off the street so you don't get run over. I am portraying Milo Pasalacqua. You might have heard the name. The Pasalacqua family has been in the Vallejo, Benicia area for over 220 years. Except I'm not that old myself. My folks came to the United States in the 1880s. During that 1880s, 1910, 30-year period when large numbers of people came from Southern Europe and Eastern Europe. They came from Genoa, Italy, home of Christopher Columbus. I was born in Benicia in 1886. Anyone want to bet or guess where I was born? You've all been there, except for the young ones. I'll give you 3 letters. B-H-S. I was born on the site of Benicia Ghostwalk. My folks came from Italy. Were farmers. They came here because an uncle of mine had a produce shop in Vallejo, and they bought some property. At that time, it was outside the city limits of Benicia, and it was a farm. So I was born where the school is now. I was raised up by my father, and with my father, I peddled vegetables and fruits all over town. Now, some of you may know that this street is a dividing street between the nice part of town and the not nice part of town. If you were to cross, especially a young man of good bearing and a young woman of high moral fiber, was to cross this street and you were seen at that end of town, you had a smudge on your reputation. I want you to remember that. While I was peddling vegetables and fruits, I was forced to go to that part of town. And I spent some time down there talking with different people, sometimes well into the evening, selling vegetables. I also worked at the 3 canneries in town. One of them is a salt one that was torn down many years ago. And at the 2 shipyards, the Robinson Shipyard and the Matthew Turner, and as you know, Matthew Turner is now a school in town. And I also worked for Ray Rankin. He had a vegetable stand and up on the 900 block, 3 blocks up. And again, I was forced to come to this end of town and spent many hours convincing people to buy vegetables and fruits, well into the evening sometimes. While I was working for Ray Rankin, some Sharpies, some con artists from Vallejo, our sister city, had a plan to buy some land over where the state park is now, where the ferry boat was, and where Spangler's ferry boat restaurant was. They were going to put some houses in, and they were going to run a bus service from Vallejo to Benicia back and forth to get people to the main line. Well, they ran out of money. And I decided that, I was 29 at the time, 1915, that it was time for me to make my way in the world. I needed $1,000 to get from them the bus that they had on hold at Buick dealer in San Francisco on what used to be Auto Roll in Van Ness Avenue in San Francisco. Some of you more mature people would remember that. So I needed $1,000 to get the bus because I figured if they can't do the bus service, I'll do the bus service. So I had $250 that I had saved up from peddling vegetables and fruits, some of them down there. And so I needed $750. So where are you going to go to get the money?
The bank.
The bank. You go to the bank. The bank just up the road here. Now, the person who owned the bank was, are you ready for this? His name was Mr. Crooks. C-R-O-O-K-S. Are you ready for this? He was also the mayor of the town on and off for close to 22 years. He'd probably get elected president now. So I went into the bank. Is Mr. Crooks, the bank manager, going to give me, a farm boy who spent time down there, $500? No. I'm just a country bum. I'm a country bumpkin. So I talked to my dad. I need $750. Where am I going to go? He says, let's go over to Benicia Brewery, to where Gus is. And I spent some time talking with Gus well into the evening. So I went down to talk to Gus with my dad, to see if I could get some money from Gus. Do you think the bartender's going to loan me some money? Good customer. You guys don't owe me $500. I now have $750. I need another $25. I go to Wally Wasserman, the Wasserman family in town, has a butcher shop. So I go to Wally and I say I need $250. Our families are friends with each other, so it gives me this $250. I now have $1,000 in cash, bulging a hole in my pocket. I have to go to San Francisco. Can I drive there? No. I take the ferry boat across to Crockett, take the train to Oakland, the ferry boat across to San Francisco, trolley car to Van Ness, walk up Van Ness, and I buy the bus for $1,000. Except I had forgot a very, very important thing. What do you think I forgot to know how to do? Drive the bus. Country boy, didn't know mechanics or anything. So I gave him the money. I said, I'll be back tomorrow with a friend, Bert Madsen, who told me he knew how to drive a bus. So I repeat my tale back. I go over to Bert's house. I say, Bert, listen, blah, 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 blah. He says, good, I'll go with you. So we take the ferry boat, the train, the ferry boat, the trolley car, get the bus. I find out that Bert doesn't know much more than I do. So it takes us a whole day or more to get from San Francisco up to here. He teaches me how to drive. He sort of learns himself. We get here. We then start the Vallejo Benicia stage line, which ran for 75 years. It ended, it was sold in 1990. Okay? Now you might wonder, what are we standing here for? Guess what this was? The depot.
I'm Mary Farmer. I'm the spirit of Mary Farmer. Well, I came to Benicia in 1889, I believe I was. It was 1889, and you know, I'm pretty old, so I don't remember for sure how old I was when I came. I think I was somewhere between 18 and 20, and I taught school right here in Benicia. You know where Taco Bell is? Well, that's where I taught school. There was a school there. It was called Benicia Primary School. And it was just a one-room schoolhouse. And right on the corner, there was a little corral for horses because we were out in the country. And so the children would have to ride a horse or their bicycles to school, and they'd keep their horses out of the corral out there. When I first came to town, I lived right down the street here, and then later on I moved out right closer to the school. And so I lived there. I taught at Mary Farmer for 32 years, was it, Mr. Hayes? I think it was. That's a long time. First, I want to tell you, you know how much money I made? I remember I was so excited that very first paycheck I got. I worked a whole month and I got $62.50. So, and it was. I taught there for, I believe it was like 32 years. But I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to tell you a story. And this happened before I got here. But you know how stories are in small towns. Everybody has a story and they tell it forever and ever. So I'm going to tell you the story the way I heard it. So when this, I'm going to say 1883 or somewhere around there, this was the bank. This was the Bank of Benicia, or some people say it was the People's Bank, one of those names. And like I said, I lived right down the street down there. But in those days, Benicia was sometimes it was called the Athens of the West, because we had so many schools here. We had lots of schools. We had St. Mary's, we had St. Catherine's, we had, I can't remember them all, but they were very, very good schools, and people sent their children here to be boarded and for education, because we did, just like we have now, we had good schools so people learned. Well, there was a school called St. Augustine. St. Augustine was a military boys' school. It was for young men, just past high school, a little bit of college age, and there was a man named John Crook, and his son went to St. Augustine. And Bishop Wingfield had a son who was a cadet there, and his job was to appoint a cadet of the year. And Mr. Crook, or Master Wingfield, who was to make this appointment, he made the appointment, and Mr. Crook was very upset because he thought his son should have been named, given this high honor of Cadet of the Year. His son was a strong leader, he was good academically, he was just a good young man, and Mr. Crook really felt like he really took offense that his son was not named Cadet of the Year, and he held a kind of like a grudge. He was really upset at Master Wingfield. Well, Mr. Crook was building a mansion. You've heard of the Crook's Mansion. It was down here at the end of West 3rd Street. One day he was walking from there to the bank. He must have had a lot of money because he had a guard with him with a gun. He ran into Master Wingfield. They got into a fight, some kind of fight, and he shot him. Mr. Crook shot Master Wingfield. They took Master Wingfield. I'm sorry, I don't remember Mr. Wingfield's first name, so I'm calling him Master Wingfield. But they took him home to the Bishop Wingfield's home, which is still here. It's on East 2nd, between East 2nd and East 3rd on Wingfield Way. And so he died. Mr. Crook was very, very upset that should happen. He went over to the Wingfields and he apologized, and they accepted his apology. He was tried, but he was found innocent. But I think, he was probably very upset about what happened. He sold his house. He had just finished building that house. He sold the house to his brother William. So it's now called the Crook's Mansion. William Crook. William and his wife, Fanny, had 4 children. They lived in that house. Mr. Crook died when he was in 1950. He was 89 years old. His wife died a year later. They had 4 children. 2 of them died and one of them when she was 12 in a bicycle accident. Another one died in an automobile accident. The oldest daughter, Alice, lived in the house until she passed away and then sold, and it's been